Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Ampire.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Happy Friday. What's up, Callow? How you doing? What's up?
Pretty good. Football Friday.
What do you think of your guy Kirk? Ooh, he's the man. Wow, you like that? Wow.
First guy to throw a game-losing interception to lose a game and a game-winning touchdown in the same game. I feel like we don't see that too often.
Pretty wild. What was his number? 505? Something like that?
Yeah, 505? 506, I think, when it was all said and done. Only the 13th or 14th quarterback of all time to do that.
It's also the rare, Thursday night, we typically get the 13-12, nobody can do anything right game. And, boy, Al must have been psyched last night. Wow. Al got a doozy.
This is hilarious, actually. I think it was halftime. It was like 20-17, maybe 23-17 or 23-20. It was close game, high scoring. And Al literally said that. He goes, yeah, usually these Thursday nighters are kind of rough. And this one's pretty good. And even Kirk's like, yeah, this one's going great so far. I'm like, guys.
He's like, we're surprised too.
Yeah, right. I'm like, guys, you don't have to have an open conversation about how Thursdays are terrible these days. So, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, because they're never going anywhere. So, I don't know. Maybe just you could be honest about it. It's Thursday. Sigs may not go as expected. That's all. But last night, how about that? So Kirk and company, maybe they are a little for real. Maybe they are.
It's Kirk though. He's gonna have his moments. This is why you get him, right? Like he's good for 10 of 17 games, right? So I'm just saying, this is par for the course for him. Kirko Chains has to come out at some point. And last night was one of those where he, makes a big mistake, but then ends up bouncing back. This is who he is. I think we've all had this conversation. Kirk's not bad. He's good to great at times and then has some of those moments because he's not great. So that was last night in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I guess they're not going to talk about Penix for a while. So they'll have to put that one aside for a little bit. He's got a good 10-day respite of the Penix stuff for a week. So,
yes.
All right. So the Falcons are now 3-2. They've played a hard schedule, played a ton of close games. Easily could be 1-4, easily could be 4-1. They're one of those. So I guess it'll be luck of the draw. And we'll see if the Lord above loves Kirk's enough to give him a really, really good record. We'll see.
This game was one of those games. I have more questions now about the Bucs than I do about the Falcons, though.
This second one where they've given up a bazillion points. So,
and that's a makeup of a team question too. You lose to the Broncos at home, who, granted, the Broncos got 2 good road games, and I think we're finding out their defense is a little bit better than everyone's giving them credit for because they're making sure Bo Nix doesn't lose games. But the way the Bucs were talking was the whole they're NFC championship contenders. They still might be, but great teams don't lose those types of games where they're at home against the Broncos and they have a winnable game against the Falcons. And especially because we were talking about the Buccaneers defense so much heading into the season.
Yeah. That's
where I'm a little disappointed with them. So I have more questions about the Bucs than I do the Falcons. The Falcons, I always thought were going to be fine by the midway point.
Yeah. We're seeing this a little bit. The really aggressive teams are getting scored on these days, and they're one of them. The trend has been not to do that. The trend has been dropping people back, not letting big plays happen to you. And the Buccaneers do not believe in that. We're actually going to play a team that doesn't believe in that either. And maybe that's partially why their record is what it is. I think it's more about their offense. I'll get into them in a minute, but there is a trend line here that the highly over aggressive teams are giving up more points. So starting the Giants too. I didn't really love the personnel, but the Wink Martindale defense was that, where they would just bring blitz after blitz after blitz, and they're getting caught on it. And that's not been the trend this year. This year, to Mel's despair, that's not what people are doing. So like I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of that. Maybe. To turn around on a Thursday night and have someone throw 505 on you. I know he's a very good quarterback. They have very good players, but they have a good secondary. I mean, that's a surprise. That's a surprise. All right, let me get into Cleveland, Washington. I've been watching a lot of the Browns, obviously, over the last few days. And let me start with their defense, because since we're kind of talking about it, this is what they did with Daniel Jones. They brought the house on him a million times, and it didn't work. Did not work. They're one of those teams when I look at them and I go, I don't actually think that's necessary considering who your personnel is. It seems like you expose yourself, but there is a confidence level to them defensively, I think because of their corners. Ward and Newsome, they're very good. And so they on some level probably don't feel like they can put their guys out old schooly back man to man. And they can bring heat alongside. They have an unblockable player. So that's Jim Schwartz. I mean, like, he's also going to bring a tremendous amount of pressure. So they might be, in thinking about this, kind of going against the trend line a little bit, that when you do this, it exposes you and you give up more points than you probably want to. Their bigger story is their offense, which I'll get to in a minute. But I do think this is probably across the board the best defense that Washington has faced. They've only given up since the opener. They got run by Dallas in the opener. They've only given up 54 points over the last 3 games. So it's hard to score on this. It's under 20 points a game. It's hard to score on them right now. They are blitzing a lot. They're like third most pressure team, second or first most man-to-man team. So will they do this again? That's a good question, because Tampa didn't care and did it against Washington in week 1. Arizona, who blitzes more than they showed last week, didn't. I think they tried to cross up Jaden, and 42 points later, they probably regret that because they just didn't play defense the way that they're accustomed to playing defense. So I don't know, actually. I have a feeling like sometimes the tiger doesn't change his stripes. So I got a feeling that this isn't take the bus guy. I think this is old salt Jim Schwartz, who's been doing this forever. So I expect a lot of blitzes this weekend. And week 1, when we had a team that did that, Jaden took off immediately and tried to burn him with his legs, but that was also his debut. I'm interested to see what is his progress now when he has a team that's going to do this and is finishing differently than Tampa was. I don't know. So I think that's an open question here. How much does Jaden run? Are we going to be back to the 10 to 15 carry game, mainly on scrambles? I think that's an open question here.
I think it's going to be how much does he run, but also can he make them pay? Like, you look at the Bengals game, that Terry throw was a all-out blitz. When he makes that type of throw, let's see how much he's evolved since week 1, because he's now kind of seen it as well, right? The other difference, though, between the Bengals defense and this defense, and you pointed it out, is the Browns cornerbacks are much better than the Bengals cornerbacks as well. So let's see what he ends up doing against those corners there. I also, though, am just thinking Jaden now has gotten better week after week after week. I don't know if that's going to work now, right? Like, that's very much a yesterday's price isn't today's price when you're blitzing the rookie now. He's seen it. I wonder what they dial up to try to prevent that. And same thing, is his first instinct not to take off anymore, because he knows if he just gets past that first level of pressure, he's going to have somebody wide open down the field.
Yes. Well, maybe. See, this is the calculation here. And this will go back to, do the Commanders have multiple receivers that another team respects? Like, obviously everybody's going to respect McLaurin. Do they have this? Like, I think this is about execution more than anything, which is really good. Like, that's better than we just have better players than you. The fact that we're executing the way that we're executing, I think, is very telling about, like, Cliff Kingsbury and Daniels and everybody and the way that they're playing. But the Browns are, if they play to form, which I think they will, then they are saying to you, we really don't think you have receivers that can beat us one-on-one. And I guess that's an open question too. Let's find out. Because this will be another reaffirmation of you could say we don't have a number 2, but we believe we have a lot of guys that can be a number 2. Last week, it might as well have been Olamide Zaccheaus. The week before, who was it in Cincinnati? I don't even know if I would describe. They kind of just threw it all over the place. Zaccheaus had a full role against Arizona. I don't know that they've had anybody else that's had like that full, outside of Terry, full role that was into the game plan. So we're going to have to see either who that is or who becomes the target of Jaden when he's out of time, which is what I expect this weekend.
I would say this second half, I feel like Ertz has been the guy that's popped up.
Yeah.
I feel like he might get 1 or 2 catches in the first half, but then in the second half where they've needed some big drives, he's gone to Ertz quite often. After that, it's a whole mess of people. Like I go to the Giants game and there was 2 passes to Noah Brown. You go to the Cardinals game and it was 2 passes in a row to Diami on those short passes where he cut it into the middle of the field. I think he kind of just picks a guy in the second half. I don't think it's like anyone specific, but they decide to go to somebody that they haven't gone to the entire game. So I think it's like second half, fourth quarter by committee is pretty much how I've settled in.
Now, the other side, where if Washington's defense starts trending the way at least it started to show against Arizona, then they should have a successful day. Cleveland's offensive line is really beat up, like bad. And I'm still waiting to see today how many of their starters are going to play, because they could be missing upwards of 4 of them. So it's rough, like what's going on with them. I think they're going to get David Njoku back. He's missed the last 3 games with an ankle injury, but I think they're going to get him back. I think that's a big deal for them, because what they've become over the last couple of weeks in general is first of all, they're very predictable in what they do. They run the ball a lot and up the middle on first down, and they've gotten behind the sticks early in a lot of downs. People are pressuring them big time. The Giants brought a lot of heat. The Raiders brought a lot of heat. They were without Crosby, but they're bringing blitzes on him because they're not holding up on the line, and Watson is hanging on to the ball too long. And so what's manifested here is not much is happening down the field. He doesn't have the time to do it. And they're also like calling a lot of early down dump offs or runs. Like everything is underneath, to the point where Stefanski, who's won 11 games a couple of times, already got asked this week, are you going to stop being the play caller? So it's already gotten to that with them. And his answer was like, we're not talking about that, which was, it's 4 games in. We were just in the playoffs, guys. We're going to be okay. But it isn't pretty. Like I actually can see where that question came from, even though it seems a little early and ridiculous to ask it. I can see where that question came from, because they feel very predictable on offense. They feel very low risk on offense. There's not a lot of creativity like early in downs, and they're not getting a lot of yardage, and they're behind the sticks, and then people are teeing off on them. And Watson just hangs on to the ball a little too long and is pretty inaccurate. So he's been bad. I think that's the easiest way to put it. Some of it is he's under a tremendous amount of pressure. And I think it's because, unlike what Cliff is doing, he's getting kind of Jaden in these 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6s. And that's like they're living life there, because everything's open to them. Not Cleveland. Like they're getting in these like 2nd and 9s, and then blitzes come. They don't get rid of the ball fast enough. So I think the key here is first down. I mean, I think if they can get them to just be themselves here, which I don't know how Cleveland doesn't switch it up, but like be themselves here, throw these little dump offs underneath to non-definitive playmaking players like Jerome Ford and others, and these tight ends not named Njoku underneath, where, yeah, they make a catch, but they don't make plays, then I think you're in a good spot with them defensively to try to, have another day like you did a week ago with 4 sacks and whatever, and 3 forced fumbles. I think you can get some opportunity that way. Because Watson, he hadn't thrown for over 200 yards yet in a game. He's the most sacked quarterback. He's the most pressured quarterback. And I think it's because of the early downs. I think that they're not being creative enough to find spots to get him in better down and distance situations. So I hope that continues, because then I think Washington's going to have another, what looks like trending up, like defensive day on the whole. That's what I think is going to happen.
No, I mean, if that ends up happening too, the game plan happens again. That happened on Sunday, where if the offense can score a couple of times, the defense literally gets 2 to 3 stops and puts that offense in a bad position, then they've got no chance. And they play complementary football again, which has been the best part about this season. Is they've gotten a little bit of that complementary football going now, where if the defense just plays well enough and the offense takes advantage of that and goes up by 2 scores, you kind of are good to go, because that defense also tees off when that's all they're doing. And this is funny with Watson too. Watson, remember he came in here, a couple of years ago, was it 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago? Like right after he came back, and he had like one of his best games. And I was like, oh God, like
he didn't. He actually was very inaccurate, but we lost Amari Cooper in coverage a couple times, and he had a couple of very easy pitch catch touchdowns is what happened.
Right. And so like, I don't expect that to happen again, but it always worries me when a player like comes into a place where he's had a good game in the last couple of years, let alone when he was coming off that suspension. But no, I think it still goes back to complementary football. This defense and offense need to feed into each other and put the Browns into a bad position, and then they'll be okay.
Third down conversions, Cleveland's the worst in the NFL right now. And here's the surprising number. But when you watch them, you won't see it surprising, but it is just because of what their makeup is. They've run the ball less than everybody else. And I think maybe part of that is they don't have Nick Chubb, and maybe they just don't feel as comfortable doing it. And part of it is they've gotten behind in a number of games. They've had to probably throw the ball more than they want to. Like I cited the under 200 yards per game for Watson through 4 games. He's thrown the ball over 30 times every game. So it's not like it's under this number and they're not attempting it. They're just not completing it. Like Amari Cooper's number per target is the worst in the NFL. It's like under 5 yards per target. So they're even throwing underneath to him. He had a good game against the Giants, but like people are limiting him. It's ugly. Like right now, it's ugly for them. Is that going to change? Maybe, desperate teams do desperate things. And I will say this about Ford too, when I've seen he's like B-Rob a little bit. He gets stronger as the game goes on. So you really don't want to be behind on them, because I think then they're just going to feed him. And he actually becomes a load, as the game kind of wears on. I expect this to be lowish scoring. I have a hard time buying that Washington will continue doing what they were doing. I think this is the best defense they're facing of the year by far, like not close. But Cleveland have not shown the propensity to do enough to score enough that overly concerns me. So if everyone is showing up this weekend, and I expect a great crowd, if everyone is showing up for 42-10, I got a hard time buying you're going to get that actually this weekend. But, would you be psyched if I told you we'd win 23-16? Because I hope you're okay with that. I hope we're going to go with a win's a win, because I don't think we're going to boat race this team unless they no-show, which the body language on them against the Raiders was really bad, specifically on offense. So I'm kind of hoping they fold a little bit, but short of them not doing that, I see a much closer, probably lowish scoring game.
I would normally just buy in and agree with you, but even though you're that's the logical thing to go with, it's not going to shock you or me if Jaden Daniels figures out this defense and all of a sudden puts up 28. I think that's the flip side here is we've hyped him up all week. We're trying to be logical here. There's also the other side of me that's going, I don't know, that dude's just torn apart every defense that he's played so far. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but the percent chance of that happening is on the table too. And I'm not trying to say that's going to, but I'm also kind of preparing myself of if he does something amazing again, who's shocked at that one, If
they score 40 again, especially against them, and I know nationally people are like, oh, that's Cleveland, they're 1-4, and that's really good defense he does it against, then for me, the hype train starts to pick up big time. And listen, I love what's going on here. I don't want to downplay any of it, but the reality is historically, in every which way, what he's been doing the last few weeks just can't continue. But they still could win, very easily. I think they could win. Cleveland's offense has been so bad that I think that they can win. So I'm hoping that's what we get this weekend. Win's a win. That's the way I feel about it. I'm with you. If they end up doing what they've done the last couple of weeks, well, again, it'll just be another example of what do we have here? Do we have the best quarterback, outside of Mahomes? What is going on here? So we'll see.
Right. There's a rant I meant to send you. It was Skip Bayless on his show, not on any arguments, but just his show. And he did a 3-minute rant of why the Commanders are like one of his favorite teams in the NFL. And I'm like, what world are we in?
Yeah.
And it was very logical, by the way. It wasn't like hot takey. It was like, this is who they've played against. He's like, I think they're going to beat the Browns, then lose to the Ravens. And then he was like, I think they're going to go 500 the rest of the way. They're going to make the playoff. Like, it was very logical. I'm like, what world are we living in that Skip Bayless actually like knows what's going on now?
That's right. If they win here, getting to 10 is extremely likely. Like very, very, very likely if they win here this weekend. All right, let me take a quick break. We'll go through the rest of week 5 next. Bram watches the show. ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
All right, here we go, Jim. First international game of the year, Jets and Vikings. Turns out to be a really good one. They ended up giving London a really good one. Aaron Rodgers goes over there. I wonder what Aaron Rodgers does when he's in England. I don't know. Who knows? What kind of special things does he do with his off time? We've got Sam Darnold, who's, boy, I kind of wish this was in New York because the ex-Jet, that would have been really fun. That's when he was seeing ghosts. Now he's been reimagined by KOC and company. The Vikings are red hot. I mean, I think they got to be in our boat a little bit where are they really believing what they're seeing here at 4-0? Like, there's no way they thought it would be this good. And I think for them, it's defensively. I don't think they thought it would be this good. The Jets have been weird. Saleh and Rodgers don't like each other. That is clear. They lost a game that may regret, recently. Give me the Vikings here. Like, I think the Jets are a way better team, but give me the Vikings here.
Oh, the Jets aren't a way better team. No way. I'm not going that far. But this is going to be Vikings win. Here's the key to these London games, by the way. Take whatever the under is. They don't score over there. The field is never good. Vikings win this game 16-10. Low scoring. The defense in the field always make these low scoring, and this is a good defense as well on the Viking side of thing. And by the way, Darnold won NFC Offensive Player of the Week or Offensive Player of the Month only because they're 4-0. Jaden had more total yards, but he gets it because they're 4-0 and the Commanders are 3-1. I just want to point that out.
I would say that I have no issue with that.
Neither do I. But I'm just saying 4-0 got him the award.
Well, we didn't talk about this. How about Jaden getting slimed by Nickelodeon? What about that? Even Nickelodeon showing up here now.
MVP.
Listen, I know there's been a lot of arguments about it. Through the first month, you're telling me he's not in that discussion?
Oh,
like,
I mean,
come on now. Like, let's be real for a minute. He is. Like,
I was first. I was first on that bandwagon. I was first on it.
Do I think that will last? And knowing how people vote, no. But like they'd have to end up 12-5. It'd have to be so obvious, that like you have to give it to them. That I don't think they would. All right. Red Zone specials this week: Panthers, Bears, Dolphins, Patriots. Dolphins, Patriots. God, that's a dud now. That final score might be 9-8. Like, that's really bad. That's if the Dolphins show up. I have a feeling they may skid the wrong way because they've just had, oh, well, guys, things just didn't go our way. So let's just get through the rest of this. So I don't expect them to bounce back. I really don't. So the Patriots might beat them. I wouldn't be surprised. And then Panthers, Bears. Let me know how it goes. I do have an interest in Caleb, obviously, but like I don't know. They're lucky to be 2-2. Like, would it surprise you because the Panthers are actually pretty competitive and actually scoring points that they don't pull off an upset there? Like, it actually wouldn't surprise me.
Andy Dalton is number 1 in the NFL, or number 1 in the NFC in QBR since he started. He's the best quarterback in the NFC since he started. So it wouldn't shock me. We haven't talked about this. We haven't really had time. the backtracking of Bears fans this week has been hilarious on social media, by the way. Like
that we got it wrong.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's laughably bad. Like I'm seeing arguments happen left and right because it's not really about them trying to do the whole like justify Caleb thing. It's how they're moving the goalpost. The one I saw last night was like, well, the Commanders are running a college offense, and Jaden's just running a pro. He was running a pro style offense in LSU, so it's a better scenario. And all these people are like, you guys were the ones telling us Caleb was being dropped into the best scenario ever. I don't want to hear it anymore. So the backtracking of them this week has been hilarious. It's been amazing.
The story's not told on that guy yet.
No,
he's just not off to the start that Jaden is. And they're losing their crap.
They're freaking out. I mean,
if the roles were reversed, I would freak out too. Because you got to remember, they're like us. They've been waiting forever for the guy.
And they also did it wrong too. Like they didn't fire the head coach. They didn't put everybody on the fresh slate. So
that
like
was
they
my
see
thing.
it.
I thought like whether Eberflus deserved it or not, I actually thought they should have, because I think they just needed to. Like they just had to time it up right. Bring in a coach who's more apt to help develop the quarterback. But maybe Ben Johnson wouldn't take their calls either. Who knows? Hey, did he call them while they were on the plane too?
That's right.
Let's see. Ravens Bengals. Well. This is a big one for Cincinnati. Big one. They could be 1-4 like that. This is a big one for them. Ravens have turned the corner again. They're running the ball down everybody's throat. Give me Baltimore here. They're better typically at home than they are on the road, but they're good kind of everywhere. I think this one, after seeing, Cincinnati live and in person, boy, they had to like sell out to stop Brian Robinson. I wish them luck with Lamar and Derrick Henry. Give me the Ravens here, and then they start freaking out in Cincinnati. They're not going to make the playoffs.
I think this one's going to be the typical Cincinnati style, though. I think Baltimore wins, but I bet you it's close. Like Cincinnati has kept their games pretty competitive. Baltimore's actually, I know they turned the corner against Buffalo. Same thing, though. They also have let their games be close. Baltimore wins this, but I bet you it's not as comfortable as you think it is for Baltimore.
Yeah, probably not. Colts Jaguars. Douglas P is getting his on the hot seat already, denying reality that he should be on the hot seat. Trev doesn't know what's up. And I don't know. I've just watched this sport too long. Jacksonville's going to win. They're going to.
Okay.
They're going to win. Yes. I don't know how, and it probably won't be pretty, but they're going to win. They're going to win this week.
Shame on me for not knowing, but I, haven't really been in on the Colts. Is Richardson starting or is Flacco starting? Do we know?
I don't know.
I think that's a difference, actually. Like, I think if Flacco's playing, the Colts
probably win. Yeah, because they probably won't turn the ball over. That's right. Yeah.
And he was very good last week against
Richardson will turn the ball over.
Right. And he's reckless. He's reckless. So just chalk me down for that. If Richardson plays, Jacksonville wins. If Flacco plays, Colts win.
Raiders Broncos. I'm going to assume Denver's going to win off of the way their defense has played the last couple of weeks. So that'll get them actually to 3-2, which gets them at least positioned to have the type of season where they're competitive enough. I've seen enough to know their defense is better, clearly, than what people think. I've seen enough to know that their offense is not, and they're in the wrong division, obviously. So could they sneak out a wild card? I don't think so, but like this goes a long way to at least starting to make that case. And I think the Raiders are, they're a mess. So I know they won last week, but they're a mess. So I don't see that going very well this year. And then they're going to trade Devontae Adams, obviously, because somebody's going to get him. So like it's already starting to unravel on them. Bills Texans. Well. Texans had a couple moments where you go, you guys aren't as good as you thought you were. The Bills, you guys are as good as we thought you were. And then Baltimore kicks them in the you-know-what, but they've been around the block a million times. They'll bounce back. I like Buffalo here. I think Houston is kind of not shown, at least early, that they're ready for these types of games. The ones where it's like, you think you're good now? Let's see it for real. So give me Buffalo on the road to knock them off, and probably high scoring game, something at least in the high 20s, maybe low 30s.
I'll double it down. I think Buffalo easily in this one. Houston, I said this at the beginning of the year. Houston is now figuring out who they are because teams aren't taking them lightly heading into this season. They're one of those teams where everyone goes, "Oh, we need to be way better prepared than we thought."
They ramped up the expectations on themselves by not that there's nothing wrong with going and getting really good players. They did, but when you do that, everyone starts going, "Oh, okay, you think you're about to win now? All right."
Yep, exactly. I think Buffalo wins this easily, and it's one of those scenarios too where maybe this one's not on as Houston as much, but you know how this works. Buffalo getting blown out was bad news for them for the following week. Essentially.
That's right. Cardinals, Niners. I mean, after seeing the Cardinals last week, I figure even with the people that are missing for San Francisco, they'll probably win. I think you'll get a better performance out of them, and it is a division matchup. So typically the division games are closer. I'll take the Niners, but probably close. I know like recent bias will be like, well, they just lost 42-14 and they're going to get killed. I don't think they're going to play defense the way they did against us. That was a mistake. I think they outthought themselves. Like the more and more I look back at that, I'm like, what were you guys thinking? Like, you guys were like, Jaden's going to think we're going to do this, so we're going to do that, and therefore he's going to do this. And 42 points later, you're like, what was I thinking? So I think they'll go back to their roots here, and maybe the game's a little closer. It's hard to pick against San Francisco at home for sure.
It's hard to imagine that Cardinals offense being that bottled up for a second week in a row too. I think the Niners win this, but I'm with you. I think it's a little bit closer.
Packers, Rams. See, the Rams could be 1-4. Oh boy. They've got some ready-made excuses with the people that have been out for sure. I thought they would be better than this. I thought that they were a sneaky Super Bowl team this year. I thought this was like a sneaky NFC Championship type matchup, Rams and Packers. And we got a long way to go. And I trust McVay because he's done it too many times to turn them around. But right now, the better team is Green Bay. And if the SoFi doesn't even matter because the whole stadium's going to be Packers fans. Watch. Like the whole stadium's going to be Packers fans. It's going to be Lambeau West. Give me the Packers here. Jordan Love looked okay. I wanted to see what it was last week. Came back, felt a little early from his injury, but he looked fine. Give me the Packers here to go out there and win, and probably by like 10 points. I just think they're a better team right now.
I just want somebody to follow around Wisconsin Packers fans in Inglewood. I would enjoy that video. I'm with you. Packers win this. Jordan Love probably gets better. And Love is one of those X factors here. We've had a lot of quarterback talk on, all the big shows, even on these airwaves too. If Love returns back to his form in the second half of last year, he's the best quarterback in the NFC, and the Packers then become one of the best teams in the NFC. I'm interested to see how he looks here. He probably is going to look better than next week. I have the Packers winning this as well.
Giants, Seahawks. Don't be surprised here. Like the Giants are actually very competitive right now, like way more competitive than I think people give them credit for. They easily could have beat Dallas. They've had a little extra time off. I know it's a road game, and that's a very tough place to play. And Geno might be the best quarterback in the NFC right now, really, the way things are going. He might be right now. Sure. Seattle's off, short week, tough game. This game's close. I'll pick Seattle because they're the home team, and I think they're better across the board. And I really don't like the Giants secondary matchup against the Seattle receivers for sure. But I bet this game's pretty close. So I'll get it close spread, but Seahawks win. But I would mark me down. I will not be surprised if somehow there's a weird outcome and the Giants win. It wouldn't surprise me.
Too much going against them, going to the West Coast, going to that stadium. If this was in New York, I'd actually be with you. Like this would be upset watch all the way. But because it's there, I'm definitely taking Seattle.
Second time this year, we have Dallas in a night game on the road. Love it. Thank you, schedule makers, for not throwing everything down on the plate there for them at home. Pittsburgh, Dallas. Ooh. We're going to find out if Mike Zimmer can make a difference for them this week, because the reality is with Justin Fields playing quarterback, if Dan Quinn was still the defensive coordinator there, I don't care how Dallas's offense was going. I would like him against Fields in an offense that isn't multifaceted yet. But the Dallas defense hasn't been particularly good since that staff left, and some of the players that left too, to be fair. I got Pittsburgh at home here, but this is a show me Mike Zimmer that you can get their defense to play to the level that Dallas had been playing the last few years. but I got Pittsburgh at home. Overwhelming crowd. Fields doesn't turn it over enough, and Pittsburgh guts another one out, and Dallas is not good in low-scoring games that end up in the teens. They don't typically win a lot of those. 20-17, Pittsburgh.
I'm going to reluctantly take the Cowboys here. Flacco, for some reason, picked apart that defense last week. I don't know what they're going to see on film on that one. I'm going to guess Dak is good enough in this one. The difference between the two teams is Indianapolis has a legit running back. Dallas does not. But the reports out of Dallas this week was that they're moving away from Ezekiel Elliott. They're not going to force feed him anymore. So, right. So it's like, okay, logic is starting to kick in here. Just give me Dallas here because I feel like they're one of those teams that's kind of too good to lose a game like this. And I know it's prime time. They're going to eke out one 19-13.
Dak 2+ interceptions. They lose.
And CD Lamb's losing it on the sideline. Is that what's happening?
Yes. You know they'll unravel fast. You can feel it.
Right.
You can feel it in them. All right, take a quick break. Esme Morgan, new defender of the Spirit, as they get set for a massive matchup this weekend against Orlando, who hasn't lost a match the entire season. That's next. Brainwash the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. This week's Spirit Spotlight features one of the newest members of the Washington Spirit, Esme Morgan, who joined the team over the summer, has become a fixture on the back line here in the latter stretches of this season, and we're heading towards the possibility of competing for a championship in the NWSL as the Spirit remain in second place in the table and have a huge match this weekend against the lone team that hasn't lost a match yet, Orlando. Hi, Esme. How are you?
Hiya, I'm great, thank you.
So I think people need to know your backstory to understand why I think this is such a big deal that you're here. You grew up in Manchester. You were a massive Man City fan. You lived out a childhood dream. You made the senior team and you played there for 7 years. So why are you here? Wasn't that good enough?
Yeah, I feel very privileged and lucky to have been able to play for the team I've grown up my whole life supporting. The first game I went to watch as a fan was when I was 3. And so every time I got to play for them, it was really special for both me and for all of my family as well. They love coming to watch me in a City shirt, but I think the time was just right for me to experience something new. I would regret it if I had stayed in one place my whole life and then, well, not my whole life, my whole career, and then looked back at the end of it and thought I didn't quite reach my potential. And that's kind of the way I felt it was going to go had I stayed. And so I really just wanted to seek a new challenge, kind of experience some different coaching experience, playing against different world-class opposition, and just try and become the best player that I can be. So I really wanted the perfect spot for that, and I feel like I have done in coming here to Washington and playing for the Spirit.
So why did you think you wouldn't be able to reach your potential? And secondarily, why do you think that could happen here in Washington?
I think I wasn't playing as much as I would like in the matches, and I felt with the circumstances around that it wasn't going to change. And so that was a little bit frustrating. And I just felt last season that I was plateauing a little bit as a player, and I'm still young, and that shouldn't really be the case. You should continually be developing throughout your career, but especially in your younger ages. And so I felt like I didn't want to have a situation where in a year's time I looked back and thought, gosh, I've not progressed this year. And so I felt like coming to the Spirit was something where I could sort of put that behind me and really push on, because working under Jonah, who's one of the best coaches in the world, I felt like was something where he can find extra details in my game and kind of see me with different eyes and coach me in different ways that I've not been coached before. And I feel like his attention to detail is something that's really going to push me to be the very best that I can be. And so that was a big draw, as well as NWSL being such a competitive league with so many world-class forwards. I feel like if I can perform well enough in training that I can get consistent game time for the Spirit, I'm going to be challenged every week by world-class strikers. So it's only going to make me a better player.
So you haven't been here very long. I'll ask you about the competition in a moment, because obviously this is a huge match this weekend that Washington is playing. But you had this perception, if you come here and you play for this coach, that he would help you perform better and grow as a player. It's only been a short period of time, but has that been reality for you so far?
Yeah, definitely. Straight away, he identified, even before I got here, when we had calls, when I was figuring out my options and what I wanted to do, he identified areas that he wants to work with me on, and he's done that in training sessions and watching clips back with me and sort of focusing on areas where I want to improve and refining the things I'm already good at too. So I definitely feel like I've made the right decision and I'm getting exactly what I want out of it, which is to find areas in my game to get better, which I already knew, but I suppose having a coach give me specific solutions and pointers on how to improve the things that I want to. And I definitely feel like I've done that so far. And in myself, I feel like I'm developing in those areas as well. So that's really exciting for me and makes me really happy that I made the decision that I did to come here.
So let me go back to Man City again. You said, as of last year, you started to feel like you were plateauing a little bit and you just didn't really want to be in a place like that. Like, that's hard to do, I think, for someone at your level to have kind of a self-reflection and think about it and go, you know what, like, it might be time for a change. And I can only imagine for you how difficult it was to think about that, because here you are wearing the jersey of the team you love. Like, it must have been very hard to kind of come around, right, emotionally to a decision like that.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but I think I'm just such a competitor and I really do want to be the best player that I can be. And I know all my coaches that I've ever had have such high expectations of the player that I can become, and I'm not yet there. So I really want to bridge that gap, and I didn't feel like the way it was going at City was going to do that. So when I kind of talked to myself about it, the decision was quite clear to me, because I love football so much and I feel very privileged and grateful to have had the chance to play at City. But I also wasn't set that I was always going to be there forever if that wasn't what was right for me. So putting my career and my ambition first, I knew it was probably best to move on and seek something out elsewhere. But the only way it was difficult emotionally maybe was because I know how much my family enjoyed me playing for City, but also they did consistently and be really happy and enjoying my football. So they knew it was for the best as well. Yeah,
and you made a commitment. They made a commitment. You signed a multi-year deal. They also signed Tara McKeown, who we've gotten used to. She's been extremely steady on the back line, and you could even argue it an MVP this season for this team, the way that she has performed this year. So it seems like not only did you make this decision, but you felt good that you were going to be here long term. And I think it's interesting that Tara is here at the same time, that you'll be playing together for a while.
Yeah, I messaged her straight away when the news get released, because we just find out with the rest of the world on social media, really, when these things happen. So I messaged her saying, yes, because I love playing with T. First and foremost, she's a great person. I love being around her. She's really funny and we get along really well. But I feel like even just the 2 games that we started together, I felt really comfortable and confident alongside her. And I feel like we've got the beginnings of a very strong partnership. So I'm excited that we're both in it for the long haul.
All right, tell me about the competition. So you've spent a long time playing at the highest level in England, and now you're here in the NWSL. Like, what are the comparisons you can make between the 2 leagues? I
think in terms of a level, they're very, very similar. As you saw when we played Arsenal, it was a really, really competitive game, and I think that's it. The top teams in both leagues and throughout the league are of such a similar level, but just good at different things. I think maybe technically the WSL is slightly better, but the NWSL is a much more physically demanding league, much more direct. I feel like there's more dangerous individuals in this league. And I think it's a big challenge coming up against strikers like Chawinga and obviously Banda this weekend, or Donez in my debut. There's so many dangerous forwards, so that's really, really tough to come up against. But I feel like the NWSL is a lot more competitive. Every team goes out to win every single game, whereas I think in the WSL, sometimes playing for City as one of the top teams, if we played a team lower down, often they would just kind of sit with 5 at the back, 4 in front and 1 up top, and just try and defend for a draw the whole game. Whereas I don't really feel like that happens at all in the NWSL. Everyone just goes for the win. And I think you go into every game knowing it's going to be a really, really tough battle, and that you have to be absolutely at your best to be able to get a win. And I really love that about it, how competitive it is.
It is an exciting style of play over here. You mentioned Barbara Banda. She is fantastic. Orlando has yet to lose a match this year. That's almost impossible in any league. What do you make of her, and what do you make of the matchup this weekend?
Yeah, she's a really dangerous player. Obviously, I think a lot's made of her pace and her power, but her movement's so good to time it and you make the most of those attributes that she's got in behind. And I think they've also done a great job of supplying her. They've got some really good creative players who create really good opportunities to make the most of the positions that Barbara Banda gets herself into. So they're such a strong team. They've also done incredibly well defensively, and Anna Morehouse, I think, has maybe broken the record for the most clean sheets. I feel like I saw that the other week, and I know her from being on England camp, and she's a great keeper. So all the way through their team, they're really strong, but I definitely have confidence that we can put an end to their unbeaten streak and hopefully close the gap to the top of the table.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. They also have a legend on their team in Marta. I wonder who did you grow up, because you grew up in England, who were the players that you really looked up to when you were growing up and kind of forming your soccer career?
I think when I was much younger, I mostly just had male role models, because the women's game wasn't so developed in England in like the early 2000s as it was here in America. There weren't as many female footballers in the mainstream media you could sort of attach your dreams to and think, I want to be like them. So most of my models up until the age of 12, 13 were male. And then when it was the London 2012 Olympics, Team GB had moderate success with the team. And from then on, there became some more household names. So Steph Horton is one, and Jill Scott was another player that I really looked up to. And I was very fortunate to be able to play with them both at Man City and now be able to call them my friends. So those are two players who, once I became a little more aware of women's football and the England team, those are two players I kind of followed and I suppose aspired to be like.
Let's go back to the match here. I know you haven't been here very long, but last week was really impressive by the Spirit. To be on the road, to be missing the players that you were missing, and to win anyway, which gives you all a chance here now with Orlando to try to catch them if you can knock them off. Can you talk about what happened a week ago and how important that was for the Spirit?
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, you alluded to us having a lot of players missing out through injury, and maybe externally people might have thought that we would be weaker or we might struggle a little bit, but I think we have so much confidence in every member of the squad and the depth that we have that no matter who's available for each game, we're in a strong position to be able to win the game. And I thought we performed really well. We were aggressive off the ball and clinical with our chances when we had them, and we defended really well towards the end of the game to fend off the pressure that Angel City built up towards the end. So yeah, I think it was a good performance all round and showed what a great strong squad we've had to be missing so many players yet be able to put in such a good performance and be able to get the win. So we were really, really pleased with it.
I'm really looking forward to this weekend. The heavyweight battle, I love it. Orlando and Washington. Esme Morgan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so a huge match for the Spirit in Orlando. Try to close the gap and make a run at the NWSL Shield. And then obviously Washington and Cleveland down at Northwest Stadium as the Commanders go for 4 in a row. We'll have a full recap of all of it on Monday. Brand Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.